Hello again, writers and coaches. Welcome to another PenOhio training video. I am Mike Fegis from Hudson Middle School, and today is going to be a mixed bag of goods. Now that we have looked at all of the basics of storytelling, I'm going to throw a bunch of ideas at you that I like to call special effects. What are special effects? They are techniques that don't fit into the other categories that we've covered so far, but that are really critical to keep in mind if you're hoping to create award-winning pieces. Let's start at the beginning, with the title of your narrative. Many writers put their tournament pieces at a disadvantage right from the start by not adding a title at all. Imagine if John Steinbeck's novel, The Grapes of Wrath, had been called Untitled. Doesn't really invite you in, does it? So how do you create a good title? Select a meaningful phrase from your story to act as the title. It can't be a random phrase. There has to be a significance that the reader will appreciate when she finishes the story. Perhaps the title refers to a key moment in a character's life. Maybe it's a reference to the setting. Sometimes the main conflict of the piece supplies the title. Whatever the case, choosing to add no title can have an impact on your reader's enjoyment. If the judging comes down to your piece and the piece of one other writer, those few words could tip the scales in your favor. Yes, at times, the judging is so close that it comes down to such tiny nuances. Next, I want to talk about a gripping introduction. You have 40 minutes. You have a complete story to write, including all of the elements that a good story has: rising action, strong characterization, sensory details that immerse your reader in the world you've created, believable dialogue. There's a lot of work to do. Simply stated, you do not have time to lollygag at the beginning of the story. While it is important for you, the writer, to know the background of your main character, the question becomes, is it critical for your reader to know that information up front? More often than not, if your story is carefully crafted, you don't need to give the reader a ton of backstory. Sometimes that volume of backstory becomes a roadblock that readers need to get around or slog through to get to the meat of the piece. My suggestion is to start your piece in medias res. It's a Latin term that means in the midst of things. Take a look at these two examples and decide which one makes you want to read on. The first example is, the detective reviewed his documents. He would bring the criminal to justice. He had to. That's not bad. There is some intrigue there. But this scene takes place with a file box in an office. Right away, the reader knows that nothing is going to happen for a while, and this introduction is asking us to be patient. We'll get to the point eventually. Let's see if we can sharpen the moment, up the urgency, so that our readers want to continue reading. Detective Meredith Shanley clutched her Smith & Wesson M&P9 pistol tightly, its muzzle pointed at the ceiling. Behind the apartment door, she heard the deep baritone voice of Victor Babikoff, drug runner and serial killer. She swallowed at the lump in her throat and reached for the doorknob. Now we have an intro. We are in the midst of things, and there's no way the reader can look away. A strong hook is critical to getting your writing off on the right foot. The next special effect I'd like to discuss is called parallel structure. This is a wonderful grammatical structure where consecutive passages follow the same grammatical pattern. One of my favorite examples of parallel structure comes from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. Find it online and listen to the audio version of this amazing speech. Analyze the following passage and look for the parallel elements.
I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed.
The first few words of the phrases become a drumbeat, a march that the reader will step to as you roll out your ideas. This predictable, elegant structure can have a wonderful impact on your writing. The next special effect that we are going to look at is called the Rule of Three. This is a tool that is formulaic, meaning that it has been used over and over. But in the hands of a skillful writer, it's a fantastic technique that draws readers in. The idea is that things that happen in threes are more satisfying. Whether you are writing humor or drama, the Rule of Three applies. When the main character is pursuing a goal, to have him fail, and then succeed is a fairly common pattern. It's tried and true. Because it's been done well so many times, skillful readers might see it coming and be disappointed when the structure reveals itself. So writers have to find ways to freshen this approach. A great example of the Rule of Three can be found in the Three Little Pigs fairy tale. The wolf finds the house made of straw, and then the one made of sticks, and then finally the one made of brick, the Rule of Three. Even the wolf's refrain, "I will huff and puff and blow your house down." He's going to do three things. Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol is another great example of the Rule of Three. The ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. If you can find a way to work this technique in effectively, readers will really appreciate it. Although specificity should not be considered a special effect, I do consider it one. This effect is both simple and difficult at the same time. Specific nouns and verbs paint a picture. General nouns and verbs do not. With that being said, not every noun and every verb can be pumped full of detail and description. Overfilling passages with specifics will bog the reader down, making him feel like he needs a machete to get through your stories. Sometimes a house is a mansion. Sometimes it's a shack, or a hovel, or a split-level dwelling. Sometimes a dog is a Rottweiler, or a Dachshund, or an Australian sheepdog. Simply stating that there is a dog in the story will never be enough. Specificity applies to verbs as well as nouns. When it rains in your stories, is it misting, drizzling, raining, or pouring down? Writers that learn how to use and balance this special effect are often very effective. The trick here is knowing which words to enhance and which ones to leave in a more common state. The next special effect is all about sentence fragments. All throughout your school career, you've been told to avoid sentence fragments. But that rule only exists in classrooms. In real life, we speak in fragments. A lot. Sentence fragments add realism. The following passage from Richard Matheson's novel I Am Legend shows the effectiveness of this technique. Another special effect I wanted to talk about is symbolism. A symbol is a concrete representation of an abstract idea. Used effectively, symbols can tie narratives together really effectively. Certain symbols appear regularly in fiction. Rain or storms can symbolize turmoil that the main character is experiencing. A candle, like the one used in W. W. Jacobs' excellent short story The Monkey's Paw, can represent hope or life. When the candle's flame burns down and finally dies out, there is a sense of finality that is palpable. A child's toy, a trophy won at an event years ago, an item passed down from one family member to the next. All of these items can represent something significant: determination, forgiveness, failure, success. Cleverly placed and properly used symbols will give your story a depth that your competitors' pieces might lack. The final special effect that I'm going to talk about is a satisfying conclusion. Make sure that your main character either succeeds or fails in her quest. There needs to be that point, that climax. Does the main character always need to be successful? Not necessarily. If the main character makes a noble sacrifice for a worthy cause, that's an excellent reason to let her fail. Another reason that a character might fail in the end is if she learns a valuable life lesson, that cheaters never win, or that evil deeds will reap evil rewards. If a main character's failure is not for a logical reason, however, Your reader will feel unsatisfied. After all, we have followed the main character, been with her through the ups and downs, and we're rooting for her. If she comes up short for no reason at all, the reader will question the storyteller's motives and ability. Leaving that kind of sour taste in the judge's mouth at the very end of a prompt is definitely a bad idea. A couple of warnings about conclusions. First, never end a prompt with the dreaded phrase, "and then I woke up," or any phrase that means the same thing. Your reader will feel that his time has been wasted if the entire narrative has essentially been a lie. Those conclusions tend to occur when the writer gets the characters into all kinds of trouble and then lets them off the hook without making them work their way through the roadblocks in front of them. These endings are really unsatisfying. Next, ending on a cliffhanger is a very, very risky move. If the narrative is crafted well, a cliffhanger has an outside chance of working. If the cliffhanger is in place simply because the writer was up against the time limit, then judges will know the ending was an escape route rather than the result of careful plotting and planning. If you want to see an example of a great cliffhanger ending, one that you will talk about and debate with your friends once you finish the story, read The Lady or the Tiger by Frank Stockton. Finally, make sure you have some kind of conclusion. To end mid-thought as time expires is less desirable than adding a rushed ending. Neither outcome is desirable, but some kind of conclusion is better than no conclusion at all. And there you have it. We hope you've enjoyed this training module. As always, thanks for watching and happy writing.
Thank you for participating today. We invite you to become engaged in PenOhio and partners like Tri-C and the Mandel Center. Together, we can support world-class writers here in Ohio.